When mariners sail over the horizon at night, the first thing they search for is a light. If they're near Winchester Bay, Oregon, they will see the Umpqua River Light. Reigning over a bluff 100 feet above sea level, Oregon's Umpqua River Lighthouse has thrown its light out to sea since 1894. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1977. This light is located near Winchester Bay, north of Coos Bay and south of Florence, near the coastal community of Reedsport. It is one of 11 original lighthouses on the Oregon coast. 9 of these lighthouses still stand, and 4 are still considered working lighthouses. Umpqua River Lighthouse is a world-renowned crown jewel. Its characteristic, or pattern of light, is a flash every 5 seconds, the first 2 white, the third red. It is the central focus of a museum operated by Douglas County. Visitors from all over the United States and the world come to view it. They place a pin on a large map to document their home city. This process is explained by keeper Galen Bradley.
This represents a map of the United States where a lot of our visitors come from, and it's most fun for them to put a pin in the map where they are from, and for us as well, to see where our volunteers and our friends and our visitors do come from.
For a nominal fee, professionally trained volunteers conduct tours to the top of the lighthouse during the summer months. These tours provide visitors a unique view of the spectacular lens and a bird's-eye view of the Umpqua River Bar. Tours leave from the museum and walk to the tower located among Coast Guard family housing. This lighthouse and museum are a valuable cultural and historical resource for Douglas County. Why do we have lighthouses? What purpose do they serve? What is their history? Lighthouses are ATONs, an acronym meaning Aid to Navigation. Ships have always needed some type of beacon to guide them safely into harbor, whether daylight or dusk. During daylight hours, mariners used landmarks to guide them into port. At night, however, landmarks could not be seen, so cities lit bonfires near their port entrances to guide ships into their harbor. There was a major problem with this practice. Although it assisted friendly ships, pirate ships and battleships could use this same light to bring harm to the area. Many believe the first lighthouse was built in Alexandria, Egypt, in 280 BC. Constructed on the island of Pharos, this lighthouse was given the name Pharos. The source of light was firewood by night and mirrors reflecting the sun by day. Although we do not have a visual depiction of this structure, travelers of past eras describe it as an imposing structure, around 450 feet in height. It endured for almost 1,500 years and was considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. One of the oldest lighthouses in existence was built around 20 BC in La Coruna, Spain. Later, the Romans constructed a lighthouse on the cliffs of Dover in the United Kingdom in 40 AD. But it was not until after the Great Age of Exploration that lighthouses became a systematic navigation for mariners. One of the earliest lighthouses of distinction was England's Eddystone, built in 1696. It was lit with candles. Scotland's Bell Rock, built in the early 1800s, inspired Longfellow's famous poem. The rocky ledge runs far into the sea and on its outer point, some miles away. The lighthouse lifts its massive masonry, a pillar of fire by night, of cloud by day. And as the evening darkens, lo, how bright through the deep purple of the twilight air beams forth the sudden radiance of its light, with strange, unearthly splendor in the glare. And the great ships sail outward and return, bending and bowing over the billowy swells. And ever joyful as they see it burn, they wave their silent welcomes and farewells. Now in the United States, the first lighthouse was built in 1716 on Little Brewster Island in Boston. The British later burned it. Sandy Hook, built in New Jersey in 1764, is our oldest existing lighthouse. With the expansion of world trade and the importance of sea travel for development and commerce, lighthouses began to spring up all around the world. In 1800, our country had only 15 lighthouses, but by 1850, there were 330. Lighthouses were built on the east coast of the United States, the Great Lakes, and the Gulf Coast. What is required to make a lighthouse functional? Well, first it needs some height. Most lighthouses have tall towers, or are built on a bluff, or a cape, or a head high above the waters over which their beacon shines. During daylight hours, the shape of the lighthouse, its position on shore, and its coloration help mariners identify their location in position to the land. At night, it is the light signal or characteristic which provides identification to those traveling the seas. Secondly, a lighthouse needs a source of light. In ancient times, firewood with pitch content was burned at the top to provide a signal. Unfortunately, many of these lighthouses sent out more smoke than light. In the 18th and 19th century, oil began to be used. Sperm whale oil was tried until it became very expensive to acquire. Colza oil, made from distilling wild cabbage, was used for a while, as was lard, a fuel that smelled as badly as it burned. By the 1890s, the standard for lighthouses was kerosene, a fuel that provided a bright light, but also produced a lot of soot and grit. The incandescent oil vapor lamp was fueled by kerosene. Norm Kenyon, an Umpqua River Lighthouse keeper's son, describes how it worked.
Yeah, okay, when you start the light, the first thing you did was just squirt a little kerosene in a receptacle, and you lit that manually with a smudge. And as things progressed, pretty soon you would turn a valve on, let the pressure that the kerosene was under get into it, and then it would light and sputter, and pretty soon you'd give it a little bit more juice, and it would start the process on the mantle. The mantle's what I'm thinking of. The mantle was all of a sudden burst into bright, brilliant light, and in a few seconds actually, everything's all going, and then you start the lens turning.
How would you start that lens to turn?
Okay, that's the system there depended on a weight of various lighthouses. They were various sizes. The one at Umpqua was pretty big because the lens was pretty big.
The first lighthouse to use electricity was the Statue of Liberty in 1888. But it was not until the 1930s that most American lighthouses had electricity. Norm Kenyon, who spent his middle childhood years living at the Umpqua River Lighthouse with his father, the head keeper, describes how life changed when electricity became the source of power for the light.
Quite a number of ways. No more hand pumping of big weights anymore. And the light, again, became much more effective. The candle power must have quadrupled or more. The not having to go through all this rigmarole and to keep track of make sure that you didn't miss a wind up on that thing was gone, so you just turned it on and check it. The guy on watch just had to look out the window once in a while and see if it was still working.
Thirdly, a lighthouse needs a means to enhance the light so it will project or throw the light as many miles as possible. A lighthouse may be required to send a beacon only a few miles or well over 20 miles, as is true with ocean lights. Early in the 19th century, parabolic reflectors or argand lights were used to enhance the simple flame. This all changed, however, in 1822. Augustin Fresnel, a French highway engineer, invented a lens with power to enhance a light source, both by refracting or bending the light as well as reflecting it. This was called the Fresnel lens. It quickly became the lighthouse standard. Fresnel lenses, which are crafted in 7 sizes or orders, consist of prisms which magnify the light. The biggest Fresnel is the first order. It is 10 feet tall and 6 feet in diameter. The 6th order is only 18 inches tall and 12 inches in diameter. Ocean lights, such as the Umpqua River Lighthouse, require the largest lens, a first-order Fresnel. Finally, a lighthouse needs a means to create the characteristic or light signal so mariners can identify one lighthouse from another at night. Prior to electricity, a clockworks consisting of pulleys, levers, and springs was installed in the lighthouse. A large weight, often as much as 200 pounds, was cranked up the height of the tower. The pressure of the descending weight turned the clockworks, which in turn rotated the lens to create a characteristic. Tell us what you can remember about the clockworks.
Well, it was arranged horizontally rather than more or less vertically this way. And the cable came up through a hole in the floor, and it let's see round around a big drum, and there was probably about this much mechanism, which controlled well, obviously this thing's got to pull, and that's got to be turned into rotary motion, and that's what the whole thing was about. An important part of that, though, was it also had to be controlling the speed so that the lens around the right. Yeah. And the first process was you'd have to crank it up, and you'd take the board out from underneath it that it's rested on. And now things are ready. There was something else you had to do to get it started turning. You have to sometimes push on the lens. But okay, so the light's lit and it starts rotating, and now everything is on characteristic, so-called characteristic is on. Okay. That was manually regulated by adjustments that you made partly to partly to the weights.
When electricity was incorporated, the clockworks was replaced with a simple electric motor which turned the lens. After the Louisiana Purchase and Lewis and Clark's expedition across the continent early in the 1800s, it was realized that Western expansion was inevitable. Numerous migrations to the Oregon Territory and California occurred in the first half of the 19th century. By mid-century, the U.S. Lighthouse Board approved the construction of 16 new lighthouses on the West Coast. California's Alcatraz, constructed in 1852, was the first West Coast lighthouse. The first Oregon lighthouse was built in 1857 on the southern bank of the Umpqua River. Unfortunately, during a flood in February 1861, the lighthouse structure was undermined. In 1863, another flood washed away more of its foundation. Now, realizing the imminent danger to the structure, the keepers removed the third-order Fresnel lens. The structure toppled into the Umpqua River, February 1864, and nothing remains of it. The Winchester Bay area did not receive another lighthouse until 30 years later. In the meantime, the rest of the Oregon coast was being lit. Cape Arago came online 1866. It was followed by Cape Blanco in 1870. Yaquina Bay was built in 1871, but was only used 2 years. It was replaced by Yaquina Head, a few miles to the north, in 1873. Next, Tillamook Rock was established, 1881. Cape Meares in 1890. And then both Heceta Head and Umpqua River Lights in 1894. The only other lighthouse to follow these was Coquille River in 1896. This second Umpqua River Lighthouse was authorized in 1888 and construction began in 1890. The intent was to have it lit within 2 years. The brick was fired in San Francisco and shipped to the site. The lens was to have been crafted in England, but there was high demand for Fresnel lens at that time. So the Lighthouse Board contracted with Barbier & C, a Paris company, for this first-order Fresnel. When the lens arrived, it did not fit in the lighthouse. They had to build a 15-inch platform to hold the light. This delayed the opening of the lighthouse for 2 years. This second Umpqua River light shone for the first time on December 31st, 1894. Many West Coast lighthouses employed 3 keepers, a head keeper and 2 assistants. This was also true at the Umpqua River Lighthouse. The main keeper was provided a dwelling, and the 2 assistants and their families lived in a duplex. The main keeper was paid $800 per year and was responsible for the management of the entire station, which included the watch or duty schedule for each of the keepers. When the Lighthouse Board was established in 1852, keepers were political appointees. After the Civil Service Reform Acts of 1871 and 1883, keepers were chosen on the basis of an interview to assess their qualifications. They had to be able to read and write, be physically strong enough to pull a boat, and have enough mechanical ability to solve problems at a light station on their own. Their daily routines included refueling the lamp, trimming the kerosene wicks to ensure a flame was bright, and washing the windows inside and out. All metal surfaces had to be painted frequently to retard rust. Because of the attendance to the kerosene wicks, keepers were often called wickies. Although work clothes were generally of their own choosing, the official uniform was a dark blue coat, vest, trousers, and a keeper's hat. In exchange for their service, keepers received a salary, a rent-free dwelling, and supplies brought by the tender ship every 6 months. Some of the supplies included salted pork, beef, rice, beans, potatoes, flour, and coffee. Fresh food had to be grown, shot, or hooked. Fortunately, there was wildlife in the area, abundant fish in the river, and gardens that flourished with fresh water from Lake Marie. Some of the instructions provided by the superintendent of lighthouses were this. 1. You are to light the lamps every evening at sunsetting and keep them continually burning bright and clear until sunrising. 2. You are to be careful that the lamps, reflectors, and lanterns are constantly kept clean and in order. 3. The wicks are to be trimmed every 4 hours, taking care that they are exactly even on the top. 4. You are to keep an exact account of the quantity of oil received from time to time, the number of gallons, quarts, gills, and so forth consumed every night. Who were the head keepers at Umpqua River Lighthouse? Well, there were several. Some stayed for a brief period of time and others stayed for many years. The very first was Rasmus Peterson. The light was lit in 1894 and he was there doing the honors. Then, between 1900 and 1926, Andrew Peter Cornelius Hald was the head keeper. Records show that the Hald family had many happy times at Umpqua. They enjoyed the bounties of the river and the sea. W.O. Wyron held the post briefly in 1926, but was succeeded by D.O. Kenyon, who began in August and served for a full 11 years. The Kenyons, including youngest son Norman, enjoyed their life at the light station also. Some of these experiences were relayed by Norm. Where did you live and what do you remember about this picture?
In that house. It's exactly the way it was when we first went there. Later on, when they got a road down there, we had electricity pretty soon. And that these weren't needed anymore.
Now, when you say these are the oil...
Those are the original, yeah.
Oil houses.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it was. In fact, yeah, while we were there, there was quite a bit of timber cut from over here. And
now, the road that led up to the lighthouse was where? Where was the road?
Well, it's actually the same, approximately, the same way that we came in on a trail at first.
Clinton E. Bud Woodard became the head keeper in 1937, at which time the Umpqua River Lighthouse became a two-person station due to the installation of electricity. During this period of time, first the administration of the lighthouse was covered by the Lighthouse Board, then the Lighthouse Service, and finally the Coast Guard, which took over the lighthouses prior to World War II in 1939. The Coast Guard presence was and still is a life-saving unit for coastal traffic. In fact, the Coast Guard is generally still responsible for the maintenance of lighthouses as navigational aids. Chief Dale Dempsey characterizes it in this way.
And particularly like here at Umpqua River, we utilize the partnership we have with Douglas County, where the county takes care of the lighthouse, and that leaves us to take care of the optic and the actual working portion of the lighthouse.
Currently, Douglas County Museums maintain the facility as a cultural attraction. Daily tours are available to the public from May through October and at other times by special arrangement. In the 20th century, newer aids to navigation have changed the role of lighthouses. With the advent of radar, LORAN, and GPS, mariners can navigate without relying on lights positioned along the shore. Nonetheless, lighthouses like Umpqua River Lighthouse still beam 24/7, providing a guiding light to recreational boaters, fishers, and the Coast Guard, as well as assistance to ships approaching the harbor. As times have advanced, the keeper's role has changed. Galen Bradley, current keeper of Umpqua River Lighthouse, characterizes the new role in this manner.
There's a lot of things that need to be taken care of here. We have the building that's the museum now, as well as the lighthouse. And also the grounds work and constant painting and upkeep and just the daily dusting and mopping and this sort of thing to keep the place up and presentable for our visitors. Also, there's a lot of work that goes into budgeting, trying to get dollars and money. We were most happy to have Geldwin come in and help with the new windows for the lighthouse. But it's always coordination and helping with the other departments that will benefit our building here, the museum, as well as the lighthouse.
Although many lighthouses have passed into history, and many more are threatened by neglect, declining funds, and vandalism, Umpqua River Lighthouse continues to shine brightly, much like it has for over 100 years. We can learn a great deal from a lighthouse, as suggested in a poem by Eleanor Dwyer. Everything I ever needed to know, I learned from a lighthouse. Stand up straight. Be proud of who you are. Always look on the bright side. Take the stairs. It's better for your health. Pay your electric bill. It's okay to stay up late. Don't make waves. It's okay to wear stripes. Keep spare light bulbs on hand. Do windows. And above all, leave a light on for those who aren't home yet.